What is the worst thing a guest has done in your home? Story 1. Mind you, all the following happened in one night. I haven't seen this guy in a while, so I invite him over so we can hang out. The night starts great, we're drinking and playing some games, and having a lot of fun, probably too much fun. But then he begins drinking way too much way too fast. I warn him, but he doesn't seem to care. Not half an hour later he projectile vomits up all over the floor, the chair I was sitting in, and me. It looked like a fire hose of puke was sprayed everywhere. And it stunk, almost immediately after he just passes out and I can't wake him up. He's breathing fine, so I plan to just let him sleep it off. I try to clean him up, put him to bed in the guest room, and then clean up myself and everything else. I'm not even done cleaning up the mess and I hear a commotion from his room. Before I even go in I can smell that he shat himself. I'm getting pissed now, but no, I have to bunker down and endure this because there's no way I can send him home now. I change his clothes, start washing the sheets, and try to go to sleep myself. But the rest of the night only got worse. In short, he was up probably 5 or 6 times because he pissed himself or was making some commotion or another. I never overnight babysat my 2-year-old nephew again. Story 2. When my husband was just my boyfriend, he was at my house before I came home from work. My roommate was taking a very long shower and he really needed to take a. He kept waiting for her to finish up in the bathroom, but she wouldn't come out. Instead of knocking on the bathroom door or even walking to the 7-Eleven down the street, he went into my bedroom and tried to in a trash can. I say tried. Apparently he overshot his mark and got it all over the floor. He panicked, tried to scoop it up off the carpet, but it just spread everywhere. Then he dumped an entire box of baking soda on the contaminated area. Now it was time to clean that up. Tried to vacuum it up, but there was too much poo-poo baking soda and it clogged the entire vacuum. Somehow he hid all the evidence before I got home and just put the broken, clogged vacuum back in the closet for me to think my roommate ruined. He did a good enough job covering up, because I never noticed. Best of all, he didn't even tell me about all of this until after we were married. TLDR, my boyfriend on my carpet and broke my vacuum trying to clean it up and didn't tell me until we were already married. Story 3. It was the week of my grandmother's funeral and we had family in town, staying at our house. One of my aunts brought along her friend, whom I've never met before that point. I could tell right away that she was insanely annoying and self-centered. I had no idea why she even came. Anyway, I heard her say multiple times that she doesn't like milk. Okay, not lactose intolerant, just doesn't like it. Well, one morning I woke up and walked into the kitchen, and there she was. I got there just in time to see her take out a brand new gallon of milk from our fridge, open, and even though there was a half-full one still, take a drink straight from the container. She then spits it out all over the kitchen and says I thought I would like it this time because it was fresh. Story 4. In college, my roommates and I had a relatively small house party. Around 3 a.m., almost everyone was sleeping or went home. Someone in our dryer and turned it on. Oh god, the smell. Never found out who it was and ended up having to buy a new dryer. Edit Aaron, you are cruel tumbling, but this wasn't you. Story 5. My dad had a new business associate in town for about a week, and wanting to provide some kind hospitality, my dad insisted that he stay in our house instead of him getting a hotel. Every morning he ordered, not asked, that my mother make him a cup of coffee. He would take about 2 sips and then pour it down the drain in front of my mom. He was just overall rude to my whole family. My mom also tried to make a nice dinner every night, and most nights he barely ate any, and then went to the McDonald's down the street and come back to eat it in front of my parents. Also, he made my dad pay for his lunch when they were out. Finally, he was supposed to bring some very specific and expensive supplies for the business, and forgot them. He got mad at my dad for not having a backup plan. My dad is pretty calm, but he offered that man a torrent of cuss words and kicked him out of the house a day early. He was too cheap to get a hotel, so he drove home 3 hours away during the night. Oh, and he asked my dad for money to get food for the drive. Story 6. Dyed her hair red in our bathroom sink, staining the brand new granite countertop, then dripped onto the new tile floor, then dripped onto the hardwood floor in the hallway, and ultimately slept in our guest bed with wet, freshly dyed red hair staining the sheets and pillowcase. Story 7. I threw a party once at my house in high school. One of my friends at the time brought 2 foreign exchange students. I had 3 rules in my house. 1. Don't dig into my parents' alcohol wine supply. 2. Don't open the door to my parents' room upstairs cause we got our cats in there. 3. If you want food, let me know, since I was trying to avoid my parents finding out about the whole thing. Halfway through the night, I noticed the 2 exchange students are missing. I walk upstairs and the cats are walking around, so I go up to my parents' room and there the 2 exchange students are, both naked under the sheets in my parents' bed, drinking an expensive bottle of wine, and each of them are holding, and chomping away at, a whole head of iceberg lettuce each. Story 8. Every year we have a big Thanksgiving dinner for our friends a week or so before Thanksgiving. We call it Friendsgiving or Practice Thanksgiving, whatever. Last year one of my wife's friends drank 2 bottles of wine within a half hour of showing up. At first she was amusing and sometimes even funny. But then when we sat down to eat, she began calling one of my dearest friends a, to her face, at the dinner table, in front of everyone else, at least a dozen times. I've never been so close to punching a woman in the face. Then she wandered into the living room and passed out on the couch and eventually threw up red wine on a white carpet. Needless to say, she's not invited back this year. Story 9. Kill my pet. I had a hamster and my friend came over. I told her to be careful, sit down and gently pet it. She stood up and accidentally dropped it. My little hamster Munchkin broke its neck and died. I was so sad. The next day at school my friend teased me for crying and being so attached to a hamster. I was in 6th grade and it was the second pet I ever had. Edit. Wow. Thank you for the gold edit. Yes. For those of you commenting this, there's another story about hamsters that I posted out there. I had multiple hamsters, 6 in total. This was my second one. The other one I posted, the one that lived 3 years, was my first hamster. Story 10. This happened to an old friend of mine a couple years ago at his apartment. He met a girl on a dating website and had her and her friend's boyfriend over one night. They all hang out, smoke weed, etc. Night winds down and he takes his girl to bed and the other couple stays in the living room on a mattress. The other couple, the girl is under 18, guy is around 26, starts having, and the girl begins bleeding heavily from the vagina. And I mean heavily. She runs to the bathroom and the guy stays in the living room. My buddy is still in his room with his girl at this point. Sometime later my buddy hears a loud thump from the bathroom next to his room and walks in to find the girl passed out with blood everywhere. Literally the toilet was overflowing with blood, handprints on the wall, this girl with no clothes on covered in blood and vomit all in the bathtub. So he wakes her up. She refuses to go to the hospital. He insists and she still refuses. She ends up leaving with her friend. The guy she came with smokes a bowl in his living room and leaves without saying a word. Great guy, right? So my friend is left to clean up this mess of blood everywhere. His toilet is clogged from something making the blood overflow onto the floor. He gets surgical gloves and ends up pulling out a large blood clot looking thing which turned out to be a fetus because the girl had a miscarriage in his bathroom. And that is the worst thing a house guest has ever done as far as I'm concerned. Edit. Welp, got rid of my gonna get buried header since quite the opposite happened there. Didn't see that coming. Edit. 2. Thanks for the gold. I've been meaning to share this story for some time now. Glad I could get it out here. Story 11. Mary Jane. It was at my girl's 13th birthday. It was a pool party and one of her friend's dad decided to stay and chat with all the moms. He excused himself to go to the bathroom and stayed in there for 30 minutes. He then went to his car for another 20 minutes. I thought this was odd, but I didn't want to ruin my daughter's party, so I didn't say anything. And I went to the bathroom. It reeked of weed in there. I personally don't have a problem with weed, but do it at your own house, and not at your daughter's friend's party. I thought it was super rude to light a joint at a 13-year-old girl's pool party. Like, who does that? Story 12. A little over a year ago, I arrive home to some kid hanging out in the kitchen with my dad. Apparently the kid got in a big fight with his mom and basically ran away and decided to knock on my door. The kid claimed to be friends with my younger, high school-aged brother. My dad fed the kid and talked to him, consulting him on his situation with his mom. He ended up letting him stay the night and told him he could borrow a bike to get home the next day. My dad was super nice to him. Well, the next day comes along and I'm at home because I worked from home at the time. I come up to the living room to find him hanging out there with some random girl and another random guy. Neither of these kids are friends with my brother, and the problem child is apparently only an acquaintance. He ends up spending the whole day at my hazu with these kids while my parents are at work, eating our food and just making a mess of the place. Eventually my dad gets home and tells him he has to get out and to borrow the bike if he needs to get home. We never saw the bike again. He claimed it was stolen, that kid. The front door to my house has a key code instead of a standard key lock. A few years ago I was away from home and my buddy texted me asking for the code because he had forgotten a sweater or something at my house a few days prior. It wasn't a big deal. I've known him since middle school, and he's one of my best friends. I told him just to go in because my other roommate was gone for the night. I get a call around midnight from my friend. He was up, and told me that he had some people over at my house and it got a little out of hand, and it had turned into a full-blown party. I was so mad, but I couldn't get home till the next day. My place was pretty wrecked, and I found a bunch of weird in my bathroom, cut up soda cans, baking soda, etc. I called my friend to see what happened, and I guess some dude was cooking crack in my bathroom. I made my friend come over and clean the out of my house and a ton of other, not cool. Story 13. Stole my iPod Touch and brand new shoes at my birthday party. Honestly, who steals shoes? The iPod I get, but shoes? Edit. Hey race, my cliche while my most upvoted comment. Also, your replies are pretty good. Edit. The sequel. I'm learning that a lot of people have fallen victim to shoe theft. I feel for you all. Story 14. I might be alone with this one, but it grinds my gears. My in-laws brought round a cheesecake and mad about cheesecake for a little housewarming party. A couple of people had a slice, but after a big meal, I thought I'd wait until later. What did they do? They took 85 of the cheesecake back home with them. They did that to their own family. Story 15. I posted this before, but I haven't had a guess me off more than this since then, so the answer is still the same. My sister got hammered over Thanksgiving weekend one year. She was being a total to her husband, and she was keeping everyone in the house awake. She's my sister, so unless she becomes violent, I'm not going to call the cops. My wife isn't the type to smack some sense into her, so I just let her make a royal out of herself. The next day, I sat down with her and told her she disrespected my home, my family, and herself. I told her that if she didn't live 5 hours away, I would have kicked her out. I also told her that if she was my brother instead of my sister, I would have broken her jaw for treating a spouse that way and disrespecting my home in such a manner. Edit. None of us are perfect. My sister was going through some stuff, and she was dealing with it poorly. She actually showed up and responded to my post. Everyone up, but it takes some courage to admit it and try to better yourself. And to the people wondering why I'd punch a brother but not a sister, relax your. Story 16. My boyfriend's mother stopped by our tiny apartment one day while I was in the shower, since I was in the only bathroom, and she was too lazy to walk the 30 or so feet outside to the public bathrooms, she decided it would be perfectly okay to just go ahead and in my kitchen sink. She has done quite a bit more whenever she comes to visit, but that was by far the worst. Story 17. My mom's friend daughter, who was about 14 at the time, sucked on all the peanuts in this peanut jar and put them back without cracking them or anyone else knowing. My family ate them all and wondered why they did not have any salt. Story 18. I collect Star Wars toys. A friend's 5-year-old kid decapitated my Yoda action figure. She knew that I don't let kids play with them, so she took it from the shelf and gave it to her kid while I wasn't looking. Story 19. In college, my roommates and I raised money for a charity. We had raised around $2,000 by selling our services and our bodies. We threw a party. My stupid roommate who is stupid and not smart left the envelope on top of his desk. The money was stolen. Story 20. My friend is an artist who lives in a big warehouse. One night he had a big show with a whole bunch of people coming over to see his art. After everyone left, he went to the bathroom to brush his teeth. He noticed something dark in his toothpaste tube and investigated further. Someone had taken the cap off his toothpaste and smeared on the inside where the toothpaste comes out. Girlfriend spends inheritance on brand new designer sofas. A one-off designs from a local maker. Many thousands of pounds of ethical hardwood, horsehair and leather. The most expensive thing she has ever bought. 1 week after they arrive, an uninvited drunk houseguest falls asleep on it and pisses herself. A giant lake of. She made a hasty exit before we can realize what happened. Eventually tracked her down and she denied ever being in our house. Story 21. My then girlfriend, who I was living with at the time. I know this because when I got home that afternoon he said to me, "Sorry dude, her, stripped naked, urinated on his own clothes and rolled around in it in my kitchen. Had to have 2 larger friends toss him out all soaked. After he passed the door I never saw him again." Story 22. Not a guest in my home, but I was the guest in my friend's home. His son grabbed my colostomy bag, it ripped and spilled all over the floor and I ran over to the sink and emptied the rest on their dishes. Story 23. When my brother was about 11 he had a sleepover with a bunch of his friends. One of them left the house with all of our video games SNES cartridges, mostly, and a jar full of change that stayed on my parents' dresser, which means they were snooping in our parents' room but didn't take anything actually valuable, like the jewelry. That was pretty shitty. We were just kids, and it was a group of our good friends. Not cool. Story 24. Oh, I remembered another doozy. So I had this friend who I invited up to my dad's house. She asked if another friend could come along, so the more the merrier. I begged my dad to let her come up too. He said only if you know her. Well, I'd seen her in the halls before, so I swore I did. She was the devil incarnate. She never helped with anything, wouldn't clear her own plate, left everything she touched a mess, didn't want to go hiking, didn't want to go to the lake, just wanted to watch TV on the couch. She would whine if she saw you walking past her, because she wanted you to get her a soda. Whenever my friend would talk to her, she'd get a sly look on her face and start whispering in Spanish, and my friend would always walk away from that looking sad and angry. Come to find out the devil girl was whining to my friend saying the reason they don't like me is because they're racist. Look at us, we're the only not white people here. I bet they hate you too. No, we hate you because you're a lazy, rude, inconsiderate slob. My friend actually took some of that in, because she was a sensitive teenager, and when she talked to her dad about it, her dad couldn't believe what he heard and had my mom come over and my mom blew up. She explained like a boss how ridiculous that was considering my long friendship with her, how both families would invite each other to parties and trips, and how any animosity the devil girl felt was strictly towards her bad behavior. My friend later said she learned a giant lesson about what racism actually is because she can still recite word for word the rant my mother went on. TLDRA devil girl invites herself and calls everyone a racist for not getting her a soda. Well, my guest was my lovely granny. We were opening a small eatery and she decided to come visit and check it out. I of course warned her that we would be very busy tending to the business. She insisted on coming, so, early morning we leave to open up and aren't back till 10 p.m. We stumble in exhausted and decide to check on the food that was to be taken to the restaurant the next morning. Guess what? Granny invited all her kids to come eat. So instead of coming and supporting my business, they came to my house and ate for free. Story 25. I woke up to him puking on my living room carpet. He left a trail of vomit spatter through the living room, down the front staircase, all over the front door. Worst part, he couldn't figure out how to unlock the front door. Fumbling with the deadbolt and the doorknob, he finally gave up and started yelling at the top of his lungs. "Let me out! Unlock your piece of door!" That's when the neighbors woke up and came out into the shared staircase. I made it to bottom of the steps just in time to relieve the neighbor from having to unlock the vomit-covered door by touching the deadbolt, which was now dripping with bright orange chunks of carrots. WF. Once outside, he puked again, this time in the center of the porch. 2 more steps would have put it in the grass. Nope. Who gave a? Not that guy. TLDR. A friend of a friend passes out drunk, wakes up at 4 a.m., eats all the carrots, pukes everywhere, pisses my neighbor off, disappears forever, never saw him again. Clayton, drank a ton of booze, ate a ton of food, smoked a ton of pot which I don't allow in my house, passed out, then threw up all over my back patio. He painted that patio in vomit, then he came into the house and slept in the guest bed with his vomit-covered feet. He made no attempt to clean up anything, didn't even say he was sorry, haven't talked to him much since then. Story 26 walked into and broke a table because she wasn't paying attention, then announced to the other guests that she should sue me because her leg got bruised. Story 27 This is the worst thing I've done as a guest. I was really drunk watching a movie while staying at a friend's place. I really had to go take a so I went to the bathroom. After dropping the load I looked around for toilet paper but couldn't find any, they were all out. I was freaking out because I didn't want to yell out asking for toilet paper. So what did I do instead? I saw that there was a bit of wallpaper hanging loose, so I ripped a bunch off of the wall and wiped my with that. It wouldn't flush down the toilet so I just left it in the trash. Luckily my friend realized that I was drunk and was pretty cool about it all. Story 28 A teammate asked her your cat's outdoor cats. As she walked inside she had been over before. We said no very quickly, to which she said oh well he just ran out. Ziggy was a bit skittish and we couldn't catch him. She didn't even help try and get him back. My mom found his body a few days later. R.I.P. Ziggy, you Olivia. Story 29 My friend and his girlfriend at the time had in my bathroom. He tried to prop her up on the towel rack and promptly ripped it completely out of the drywall. He thinks it's funny. Story 30 It was the day of my bat mitzvah. We had a professional photographer come to the house to take portraits. Anyway, apparently he's having some stomach issues that day, goes into the bathroom for a while, comes out, says he's extremely sorry but he has to leave. We go into the bathroom afterwards. Not only does it reek but the bathroom carpet is gone, TLDR, the photographer on the rug. Story 31 Decided to finally stop lurking to tell this story. A couple of years ago, some relatives visited us for about a week. We had a pretty full house, so we decided to park our RV in the driveway and let my cousin sleep in it. We bought it used a few months before this, so while it worked for basic camping trips, not everything was fully functional. One of the things that didn't work was the toilet. I made this perfectly clear to my cousin right from the beginning. Make yourself at home here, but just do not use the toilet. If you need to go to the bathroom, go inside through the side door which is always unlocked and use the guest bathroom. Well, on the day they were going back home, right as I was helping him load his luggage into the rental car, he turns to me and says, oh by the way, I had to use the bathroom in the RV last night. The side door was locked so he couldn't get inside the house. I just stood there shocked for a second, and soon after we said our goodbyes and they were gone, then I started to get a really bad feeling in my gut and decided to check out the RV. I opened the bathroom door and slowly lifted up the toilet seat. My cousin had explosive diarrhea all inside the toilet which did not flush. There was splatter to the sides of the bowl and my god, the smell was horrendous. At this point they were long gone, so I had to clean his out of the toilet. I was not a happy camper, no pun intended. Story 32 One of my friends brought his baby with him, but didn't plan for anything. He basically brought diapers and nothing else that babies need. He asked us for graham crackers because he was teething, towels because he was messy, and he kept giving him our toys without asking just little. Like my girlfriend has a plushie Totoro that she would have preferred not get baby slobber all over. He was also tired after being up with the baby all night and so he asked us for one of our K-cups, which I was okay with, but he proceeded to help himself to 3 others. We also ordered pizza because it was a decent-sized party, but he and his wife both ordered bread bowls and I'm convinced one of them accidentally ordered lava cakes. They didn't have money on them so they said they'd PayPal it to us, which didn't happen for a month. After a while, we found his wife asleep in our bed with the baby. Jesus Christ, all I wanted was to invite a few people over to play board games, not have my house and wallet destroyed by irresponsible parenting. Story 33 Stole my little brother's Legos from his Harry Potter set. I said something to the effect of, oh we need to decorate this bit with the shiny Legos. It's clever that you collected those in your pocket because now we don't have to search for them. Story 34 In my first apartment my roommates and I had this shitty dumpster-found coffee table that we put in the living room. It became tradition for our close friends to crave their name into it. We had a party one night and some of my work friends came over and proceeded to carve dicks into it. They were kicked out and the table was thrown away. Story 35 Oh my god, I have the perfect story. I really hope this doesn't get buried. My dad has a cousin on a side of the family we don't speak to all that much. Let's call him Rupert, because he has an equally ridiculous name. Rupert is in his late 40s, an only child, has no job I am aware of, and still lives with his parents. That should tell you pretty much everything you need to know, but in case it doesn't, he is also a keen amateur chess player. There is nothing wrong with each of these things individually, but combine them and the picture in your mind is exactly what Rupert is like. So one day Rupert's parents call my dad and ask him if he knows anywhere Rupert can stay in Edinburgh, because there's a chess tournament on that Rupert is going to be in. As it happens, and as if they didn't know it perfectly well, yours truly is a student in Edinburgh with a flat and a spare room for the moment. So of course Dad is obliged to offer that Rupert can stay in our flat. I wasn't going to be there at the time, but my female flatmate was. Rupert was going to stay in the recently vacated room of our other flatmate. I wasn't too sure about giving someone I have never met and my dad hasn't seen in years access to my flat with just my female flatmate for company. But she, my dad and Rupert's parents all assured me it would be fine. So okay, Rupert gets sent the keys and turns up at the flat. I should mention at this point that everything I know about the situation is secondhand information. First from my flatmate and then from my parents who had to come home early from a weekend away to throw Rupert out. I did not meet or speak to Rupert, and I did not see the flat firsthand. I did, however, see photographic evidence. According to my flatmate, Rupert turned up reeking like a person who had not showered in over a week. He barely spoke a word to her. After a couple of days, The stench was emanating from her room even when he wasn't there. She called me to let me know what was going on. I called my parents, not knowing what to do. My dad said he would speak to Rupert and find out what was going on, but he obviously ignored whatever my dad said and the smell didn't go away. A few days after that, when it got too bad to ignore, my flatmate braved the eye-watering odor, looked into the room, and discovered that the bed and sheets were caked in, several days worth of. He had copiously shat himself at some point while asleep, and then slept in it again. He didn't even remove the stained sheets. She ran to the bathroom to vomit, the only communal bathroom, and discovered that since her last visit, he had somehow managed to get even more on top of the toilet lid. When she phoned me this time, she was extremely upset. I phoned my parents again, pretty pissed off that they had let my dad's insane cousin have a party in my flat. My dad came home early from a weekend away, picked up his brother, and they drove through to Edinburgh to kick Rupert out and clean up his filth. We had to throw away all the bedding and the mattress, and air the room for nearly 3 weeks. A short while later we got a letter from Rupert telling us that he felt we had treated him very badly by throwing him out my flat, that we were bullies, and that we should apologize to him. I honestly wish I was making this up. TLDR, dad's psycho cousin shits all over my flat. Story 36 had a friend from college over one summer right after the 4th of July. I lived in a pretty quiet neighborhood, and unannounced he walks outside and starts shooting off Roman candles right after midnight. My dad walks outside to see what's going on and he starts shooting them at my dad's feet, Wild West style. Story 37, my pets are my family. Anyway, my in-laws live in another city, so when my brother-in-law needed surgery in my city, I offered my place to him, his wife, and their girlfriend. The girls could stay however long they wanted until everyone was ready to go home. So we're all in my living room the first day, and my cat walks in checking out the new people. My BL's wife kicked my cat for absolutely no reason. She was worried he'd bite or claw even though all he did was sniff. I was floored. Why would you kick someone's pet? I even asked them ahead of time if they were okay with a cat because if not, I'd give him the bedroom. Just WTF. My BL was having a big surgery and I didn't want to stress him out the night before, so I couldn't just kick them out, so I just kept my cat in the bedroom. After the surgery I told them they're not ever welcome overnight in my home again. If they want to visit the city, and they do frequently, they can pay the ridiculous hotel prices here. WTF. Kicking my family, she didn't even apologize. Story 38, great timing. We had a guest over for about a month earlier this year. She was supposed to be getting a job to relocate to our area. We fed her, entertained her, took her with us when we went out, introduced her to our friends in the hopes they would hire her. I let her borrow my clothes when we went out, but it was always quite clear that it was borrowing my clothes. When she left, she made certain to leave the house while both me and my husband were at work. It took a few weeks, but I noticed one of my favorite pink corsets and matching pink skirt were missing. I asked her about them. Did these get mixed up in your clothes? And she replied, my clothes. Oh, this weekend, she posted a picture of her in a tutu that I had purchased as a gift for my cousin's daughter. I hadn't shipped anything out yet, so I hadn't looked for it, but this is the tutuing headband set that I bought for a Christmas gift for a little girl, and this nutcase stole a gift for a child. No, she isn't allowed back in my house. Story 39, this was back in middle school. My friend would come over almost every day and we would play video games Star Wars Battlefront mostly anyways. One day he has to take a dump, so he goes into the bathroom and proceeded to evacuate his bowels. Almost 45 minutes later, He walks back into the living room where I was still playing games. His eyes were wide and his face white, says I have to leave, see you later, and off he goes. Alright, whatever, see ya. I walk into the bathroom after he leaves and see that he has destroyed it. I mean obliterated the bathroom with projectile diarrhea, runny, nasty, stinky, dripping all over the toilet inside and out. All over the bathtub, all over the sink, the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. The towels and curtains were a complete loss. It was like he stood up and did a ballerina twirl whilst shitting a fountain out his all over the bathroom. The next day I went over to his place and asked him what happened. He said he had a medical condition, no idea what that could have been. He may have told me, I don't remember. I told him that he was not to use my bathroom anymore. He agreed, started laughing about it, and we went and killed some droids. Story 40, one of my friends decided to bring over another friend I had never met for a night of drinking and karaoke. Now, this girl was big, and I only say this to provide an explanation for how she did what she did. Apparently, she had never drank before and it hit her hard. She was laying on my couch and started to throw up all over it, everywhere. Then she rolls off of the couch, breaking it in the process, and proceeds to crawl from the living room all the way to the bathroom across the house, vomiting the entire way. For some reason, while she was in the bathroom puking, she decided to pull out all of my laundry out of the hamper and throw up all over that too. But the worst thing of all, she somehow managed to rip the toilet away from the wall and broke it, flooding my bathroom. My so-called friend left me to clean all of this up alone. Oh yeah, and the girl never paid for the damage. I had to replace the toilet myself. She never apologized either. She would just giggle when I brought it up. Now I'm mad again, ugh. Story 41, a mutual friend of myself and my two roommates, let's call him Steve, has no sense of overstaying his welcome or boundaries. For one, if we invite him to hang out Friday night, he will stay until Monday morning unless something else comes up that he wants to go do. The one thing that tore it for me and roommate Fallow's a 2-day overstay. Steve gets up off the couch, walks to bathroom, and proceeds to take a shower without saying a word. After he gets dressed and comes back to living room, I ask him whose towel he used. He nonchalantly replies, I just grabbed one that was hanging up. That was our third roommate's towel. After that, Steve doesn't get invited over too often anymore. TLDR, mutual friend of my roommates and I takes a shower and proceeds to use my roommate's towel without saying a word after inviting himself over for 3 days.